we're the Balters. I'm Dan, and this is Allison. Welcome to Windows 95 Level 2.
On this tape, we're going to take a look at some of the power features of Windows 95. We're going to learn how to work with desktop shortcuts and how to customize Windows 95. We'll see how we can print in Windows 95 and some advanced techniques in working with the product. Windows 95 makes it extremely easy for you to access your favorite programs. In this section, you're going to learn the different methods for accessing desktop icons. You'll learn how to create your own shortcuts to your favorite programs and how to create a new folder. You'll also learn how to copy and paste shortcuts. Finally, you'll learn how to delete shortcuts so you can get rid of them if you don't need them any longer. There are several things that you can do with your desktop icons, which are these icons right here. You can come up to an icon and click with your left or dominant mouse button one time and select that icon. So notice you can click to select a particular icon. You can also take an icon, click and drag and move it wherever you'd like. Notice that it didn't move over to the right, it actually popped itself down in line. So if I move it over here, notice it pops itself back in line. I can right mouse click anywhere on the desktop here, select Arrange Icons, and I can arrange by type. And now I've placed them back how they were originally set when I first came in here. There's other things I can do. I can come over to an icon and double click my mouse. That opens up that icon and shows me what's inside it. In the case of my computer, I get a view of what my computer looks like. Notice that I can see my 3.5-inch floppy drive, drive C, drive D, drive E. I can also see drive F, which is my CD-ROM, and I can see control panel and printers. Since these are considered system folders, they're included on this list of everything that's contained within my computer. At this point, if I wanted to explore my computer further, I could do something such as double-click on drive C. For now, I'm going to close down this window by clicking on the X over here. Likewise, I could also come over and double-click on the network neighborhood. And here, I could see any other computers that I was hooked up to. I'm going to just close this down for right now. So we've seen that we can single-click on the various icons. We can double-click to open up those icons, but there's something else quite exciting that we can do. We can come up to an icon, for example, my computer here. I can right mouse click on my computer, select Properties, and here we can see the properties of the My Computer desktop icon. Right now I'm looking at General, and I get some information about my system, Microsoft Windows 95, the version and build, who it's registered to, the type of computer. I can also go over to this tab right here, which is the Device Manager tab, and look at information about my devices on my computer, things such as my modem, my keyboard, my monitor, my mouse, and so forth. I can change things about these various items. I can come over to Hardware Profiles, and I can create hardware profiles. I can also come over to Performance, and I can look at information such as how much memory is on my computer, my free system resources, whether I have a 32-bit or 16-bit file system, whether I have disk compression, and so forth. So I get a lot of very powerful information. We'll be showing you later how we can change a lot of these system properties. For now, I'm going to come down and select Cancel and get out of here. Let's take a look at the Recycle bin. Again, right mouse click and select Properties. Here we're looking at the properties of the Recycle bin. Globally, specifically on drive C, drive D, and drive E. So we can get and change information about the Recycle bin. going to go ahead and cancel. It's just important to be aware that this is all available to you. You just saw how you can manipulate desktop icons. Now you're going to see how you can create shortcuts to your favorite applications. I'm sitting here with my mouse cursor over the desktop, anywhere over the desktop, and I'm going to click with my right mouse button. From here, I'm going to come down and select New. We're going to create a new shortcut. Notice there's other things that we can do from here. We can create a new Word document, a new Excel worksheet, and so forth. So I'm going to select Shortcut. If I move this Create Shortcut dialog a little bit, you can see that we've already created an icon here that says New Shortcut, but right now it doesn't do anything. So we have this little wizard here asking us to fill in information about our new shortcut. I'm going to go out and browse and find Control Panel. Control Panel is within my Win95 folder, so I'm going to double click to go into Win95. And then if I scroll over to the right, I can see Control. This is my icon representing my control panel. From here I'll select Open, and now I've filled in the name of the file and the path to that file that I want to create the shortcut for. I'm going to select Next. Here I can put in a name for the shortcut. I don't like just Control, so I'm going to type in Control Panel. Now I'm ready to finish, so I'll select Finish. What we've created here is a shortcut to access the control panel. If I want to get into the control panel at any time, all I need to do is double click on this icon right here. So I double click, and now I'm actually in the control panel. Let's go ahead and close this down for right now. There's another way that I can create a shortcut. I'm going to go into My Computer over here. Double click to go into My Computer, and now I'm looking at the various drives on my computer. Let's double click on drive C, and we can see the various elements of drive C. I want to go into my Win95 folder, so I'm going to double click on Win95. Here we have all the elements within Win95. I want to create a shortcut to the calculator. So I'm going to come over to the calculator here, and with my mouse on top of the calculator, I'll right mouse click. What I want to do is create a shortcut for that icon. So I right mouse clicked over the icon. Now I'm going to select Create Shortcut. I have this shortcut to the calculator. I want to place this shortcut on my desktop. So I need to be able to see my desktop. To be able to see my desktop, I'm going to close down this Drive C window over here. And now I can see my desktop. All I need to do is take this shortcut and click and drag it over to my desktop and let go. Now the shortcut no longer exists over here within my Win95 folder, but instead exists out on my desktop. Now I can close. And anytime I want to get into the calculator, I can double click. And now I'm in the calculator. Let's close down the calculator. We've seen that we can create some shortcuts to our favorite applications, but it's also important to know that we can customize these shortcuts. To customize our shortcut, you right mouse click over the shortcut icon and go into Properties. Right now we're looking at General, and we can see things such as when it was created, modified, accessed, and so forth. And I can come over to this shortcut tab right over here, and I can change the target, where it starts, if I want a shortcut key, whether I want to run in a normal window, minimized, maximized, and so forth. So I can customize any information about my shortcut. I can even change the icon. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on Change Icon, and I can go out and browse various icons. To find some additional icon files, if we scroll over to the right, we can find more icons.dll and then select Open. This will show us a lot of additional icons. So I can come over and pick any icon I want. For example, this one right here, and select OK. What I've done is I've changed my icon for the calculator. Now if I say OK again, notice that the icon changes. I also might want to change the text right here. To do this, I right mouse click and select Rename. Now I can type within this area right here. And I'm just going to type in calculator. Again, anytime I want to run this, I just double click on it. It still functions the exact same way. I'm going to close this down again. Let's customize one other thing. I'm going to right mouse click and select Properties. Let's go over to Shortcut and say that every time we want to run this, we want to run it rather than in a normal window, we want to run it minimized. So I'm going to select OK and double click to run it again. Notice that down at the taskbar we can see calculator, but we don't have it up on the screen. So now if I click on calculator down on the taskbar, now we can actually bring it up in a normal mode. Let's close it down.
And then one more thing, assign it.
Let's assign a keyboard shortcut to this icon. Right mouse click and let's go down to Properties. I'm going to go over to Shortcut and select Shortcut Key. And for the shortcut key, I want to use Control F10. So I'm going to hold down my Control key and press my F10 key, and it says Control F10. I no longer want to run it minimized, I want to run it in a normal window, and now I'll select OK. So now all I need to do is hold down my Control key on my keyboard, tap my F10 key, and I run calculator. Let's go ahead and close the calculator down. We've seen how we can create and customize shortcuts. Now we're going to take a better look at shortcuts and learn some great tips and tricks for creating shortcuts. First, I'm going to show you a gotcha on creating a shortcut. Let's come over to my computer over here and double click. I can see the control panel right here. I would think that I could take the control panel, right mouse click, and select Create Shortcut. Notice I get what seems to be an error message. It says Windows cannot create a shortcut here. Do you want the shortcut to be placed on the desktop instead? Because I'm in the My Computer main folder, I cannot create a shortcut within this folder. But I can say yes, and you can see that we've created a shortcut to the control panel right here. So that's just a gotcha rather than a trick or tip, but it's important for you to know. I'm going to close down My Computer. Here's one of my favorite shortcuts. We already have a shortcut to Control Panel over here. In fact, we have two of them. And in a little bit, you'll learn how to delete existing shortcuts. But I'm going to double click on this shortcut to Control Panel so I actually bring up the Control Panel. So any way that I would have liked to have brought up Control Panel, I could bring it up. But I'm going to come over to Date Time over here and select it by single clicking on it. Then I'm going to hold down my Control key and select Mouse. With my Control key still held down, I'm going to come over and select Sounds, and with my Control key still held down, I'm going to select Display. I could now right mouse click on any of these icons and select Create Shortcut, or I can come up to the File menu and select Create Shortcut. Again, it says Windows cannot create the shortcut here. Do I want the shortcut to be placed on the desktop instead? Because I'm in Control Panel, which is not user definable, I cannot create a shortcut within this folder. I'm going to say yes and watch what happens. What's very neat about this is I instantly created shortcuts to all of the elements that I had selected within the Control Panel. So if I come over and double click on Shortcut to Sounds, I immediately bring up Sounds. If I double click on Shortcut to Date Time, I bring up Date Time. So I've created all these shortcuts to my favorite applications or features of Windows 95 out on my desktop. There's another little trick that's a shortcut It simply involves at any time going over to the time over here in the lower right hand corner and double clicking with your mouse. Just double click with your mouse and it immediately brings up the date time properties. Just a cute little trick that's part of Windows 95. Let's cancel out of here. Sometimes you're going to want to create your own folder to contain all of these shortcuts that you've created. Rather than having them out here cluttering up the desktop, you may want to place them all within one folder. The way you do this is you simply right mouse click on your desktop and select New. This time, rather than creating a new shortcut, we're going to create a new folder. So I select Folder. I have a new folder and it's ready for me to type in a name. I'm going to type in Great Apps. That's the name of this folder. Now I'll double click to open up the folder. So the folder's out here. I've moved it by clicking and dragging on its title bar. And I want to place these shortcuts, instead of on the desktop, I want to place them in this folder. So I'm going to take the calculator and click and drag it over here. Notice the calculator was moved off of the desktop and into Great Apps. Now I'm going to take Shortcut to Display, hold down my Control key, select Shortcut to Date Time, Shortcut to Mouse, and Shortcut to Sounds, and with all four of them selected, remember I did that with my Control key, I click and drag them together into this Great Apps folder. And now they're all removed from the desktop and they're placed within this folder right here. I can come over here and size the folder, and I can right mouse click within the folder and select Arrange Icons, and I want to do an auto arrange. And now they're nicely arranged within Great Apps. So let's close this down. Assuming I've done this, anytime I want to get into any of those applications that I've created a shortcut for, I double click on Great Apps and then double click on whatever I want to go into. For example, Shortcut to Sounds. And there we are. Can come over here and open up Shortcut to Date and Time as well. Well, we've learned how we can create folders and shortcuts, but we may want to get rid of some of our shortcuts. I'm going to leave Great Apps out here, but I'm going to select Control Panel, hold down my Control key, and select Shortcut to Control Panel. I've decided that I want to delete these shortcuts. With them selected, all I need to do is hit Delete. I'm asked if I want to send these two items to the recycle bin, and I'll say yes. All I'm doing is deleting the shortcuts themselves, not the actual applications. In this section, you learned how to make Windows 95 your product by customizing the desktop. You learned methods of accessing desktop icons by clicking, double-clicking, and right mouse clicking. You learned how to create shortcuts to your favorite applications and how to copy and paste desktop icons by clicking and dragging them from one folder to another one. When you're working with Windows 95, you should right mouse click on everything because there's a lot to be found under that right mouse click.
Now let's see how we can customize and configure Windows 95. We'll see how we can add or remove items directly from the Start menu. And we'll take a look at how to use the Startup group. Then we'll take a look at some more properties of folders. And we'll look at settings for both the Control Panel as well as for the taskbar. Finally, we'll see how we can design our very own workspace, and then we'll see how we can use Safe Mode to restart Windows if some of our settings go awry. Here we are back in the Windows 95 desktop, and we have the folder icon that Allison just created up here towards the top called Great Apps. I want to go back into the recycle bin. I want to retrieve some of those shortcuts that Allison just deleted. We'll go down, take our mouse pointer over the recycle bin, and double click to open it up. And we can see all of the items that have been recently deleted here in Windows 95. We have a couple of shortcuts here for the Control Panel. I'll click on Control Panel, and I'm going to go ahead, I want to undelete this item that was previously deleted. Let's come up to the Edit menu, and then we'll select Undo Delete. And that shortcut should now be back on the desktop. We can go ahead and close down the recycle bin either by clicking on the X over in the right hand corner or by selecting the File menu and then Close. And notice that my shortcuts are now back. Let's take a look at our Start menu first of all, and notice that everything is the same as we've left it when it was originally installed. And let's click back on the desktop. One of the easiest ways to add items directly to the Start menu is simply by clicking and dragging them over to the Start menu, and then simply letting go. Now you'll notice that the desktop icon is still here. It didn't get moved, it simply got copied. If we open up the Start menu, we'll see at the very top now we have a shortcut to the control panel. So we've very easily added an item to our Start menu. If I click on it, it'll open up Control Panel, and we can simply close it down. If I want to add other items to my Start menu, and if they're not here on the desktop, or if I want to remove items, there's a way we can do this. Very simply, take our mouse and come down to a blank spot anywhere on the taskbar. Since we don't have any programs running currently, that's very easy. We have the whole taskbar is open. Right mouse click and then select Properties. And you'll notice Taskbar Properties dialog box that shows up. We're not interested in any taskbar options. We want the second tab, which is Start Menu Programs. And we click on it to reveal the Start Menu Programs options. And we can see we have a customized Start Menu box right here. We can either add, remove, and it is also an advanced button. If we want to add programs, we simply click here on the Add button. And we could go ahead, if we wanted to, we could simply browse. And we could choose whichever program we would like. If we want to go into the Windows 95 folder by double clicking on it, and we can find, for example, the calculator, clicking once to select it, then clicking on the Open button, and you see Windows 95 fills in this whole command line for us. We could type it in manually if we knew the whole path and file name. We'll go ahead and click on the Next button. And the next thing that the Windows 95 Start Menu Programs option is telling us is it's asking us where on the Start menu do we want to have this item. Right now it's defaulting to Programs, but we could have it appear right here on the Start menu at the very beginning, or further down in Programs or Accessories, or even underneath Accessories. We can put it anywhere in this tree, in this hierarchy if you will, that we'd like to. I want to go ahead and put it on the very beginning of the Start menu so that we'll see it as soon as the Start menu opens up. And then I'll go ahead and click on Next. Finally, we need a name for this shortcut, and we can type in the whole name. We'll just go ahead and type Calculator. And then we'll click on the Finish button. Now, if we go ahead and click OK, and then we select our Start button again, we'll see we now have a calculator option on top of our shortcut to the control panel. If I click on the calculator, you see that it opens up. What if we wanted to remove that? I mean, let's say we really don't like it there after all. Come back down to the taskbar, right mouse click, select Properties, and then select the Start Menu Programs tab. Now we need to go into the Remove button. And we click on it. And we need to select the calculator item. The calculator item, of course, is off of the Start menu, the very beginning. And we should be able to see it down here towards the bottom. Here it is, right off the root of the Start menu. There it is, it says Calculator. If we click once to select it, and then select Remove, Windows 95 removes that item off the Start menu. If we go ahead and select Close, and then OK to close the Taskbar Properties dialog box down, we'll go back into the Start menu and notice that our calculator item is now gone. It's been removed. And we can go ahead and click back on the desktop. The Windows 95 control panel allows us to highly configure and customize the system. Because of this, we're going to want it to be very accessible. Here's a cute little trick to show you how to use it off the Start menu. We've already gone ahead, if you remember, we moved the control panel shortcut down over to the Start menu, and we can click on the Start menu and there it is. If we click on the shortcut, of course, it opens up a control panel folder. But what if we would like a cascading list of the control panel items, similar to this cascading list of programs, that we could then access control panel items in this manner? This would be a little easier. Well, we can do this. Simply click on the desktop to get rid of the Start menu, and let's go back and put our mouse pointer on top of the Start button, and this time right mouse click once. And we get a little pop-up menu. We have Open, Explore, and Find. We want Explore. Let's go ahead and select Explore and click with our left mouse button once. And we'll get an Explorer window with two panes opening up for the contents of the Start menu. We need to come over to the right-hand pane right in here in this white blank area and click once with our right mouse button. A context-sensitive menu pops up, and we want to select New and Folder. We're going to create a new folder here under the Start menu. We'll click with our left mouse button, and notice a new folder icon pops up, ready for us to enter in the name of our new folder. Well, there's a special name that Windows 95 will identify as the control panel, and this will allow us to create a cascading menu right off of the Start menu. What we need to do is type this in exactly as I'm typing it here. First, we'll type in the words control space panel. We then need to type in a period. Next, this is where it gets a little complicated. Follow me very carefully. We're going to type a curly brace. That's a curly brace. You need to hold down your Shift key in order to access the curly brace. Then we need to type in a series of numbers and letters. Press your caps lock key. We want to make these letters all capital. We're going to go ahead and type in the following: 21 EC 2020 and a hyphen. Then 3 AEA and another hyphen. Next, 1069 and another hyphen. Next, the letter A, the number 2, and then 2 Ds and yet another hyphen. Finally, we finish up with 0800 2B3 0309 and the letter D. Don't forget to put in that final last curly brace. Once we've put in all this accurately, we can go ahead and then hit our Enter key so that Windows 95 will accept the information. Notice now we have a folder that entitled Control Panel, but we've done more than just that. Watch what we've done. We can come down to the Start menu and click on it, and notice that above the shortcut to the Control Panel, we now have another similar icon that says Control Panel, but notice a cascading menu that follows, allowing us to immediately access any one of the Control Panel items. This is a cute little trick. If we want to, for example, select date and time, we simply highlight it, click once, and we're brought into the date and time dialog box. We can go ahead and close this down, and let's close down the Start Menu Explorer. In customizing your own computing environment, there may be certain programs that you want to start immediately when you begin working with Windows 95. There's a way to do this. This is using the Startup group, and let's see how this is done. The Startup group can be accessed off the Start menu, but this is not where its power is. If we come down and click on Start, we can come up to Programs, and we can go over to the Startup group. We can see that the Microsoft Office installation has gone ahead and put in a couple of items into the Startup group. Ordinarily, if you just installed Windows 95, you would find this Startup group to be empty. What if we want to add some of our own programs to the Startup group? Well, that's fairly easily done. Let's go ahead and click on the desktop to close down the Start menu. The first thing we need to do to enter a program or two directly into our startup group is to open up the Windows 95 Explorer. This is accessible off the Start menu, from Programs, and then select Windows Explorer. And this gives us a view of our entire computer and all the resources that our computer is able to work with. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if we can find the Notepad application. Let's say we want our Notepad application to start up as soon as Windows 95 gets turned on. We double click here on the Windows 95 folder. We can see all the files in the Windows 95 folder, and Notepad is right here, and it's one of them. Let's go over down on the left side, scroll down a little bit, and let's just open up our folders that are beneath our main folder Win95 by clicking on this plus sign here. And we notice we get a whole lot of subfolders, and then we have Start menu folder, and below that Programs, and below that here's our startup right here. What we need to do is simply copy our Notepad application over into our startup group. Come back over on the left-hand side. We'll select Notepad. Hold down our Control key to make sure we're copying it, not moving it, and simply click and drag over to Startup and let go. Now if we open up the Startup folder, we should see, in addition to a couple of Microsoft Office utilities, we now have Notepad. And if we were to double click, Notepad of course would open up to a blank untitled file. We can close this down, and let's go ahead and close down the Explorer. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and pretend as if we were logging off or shutting down our computer and starting it back up again. Let's click on the Start menu and select Shut Down. Now, with Windows 95, you don't really have to shut down to simulate an actual shutdown of the system. You can simply select Close All Programs and log on as a different user, and then say Yes to shut down. And Windows 95 won't completely close. It'll just allow us to log back on as if it had closed down. I can still log in as myself. I don't have to change, and we'll simply go back into Windows 95. And just as if we restarted the system, Windows 95 again starts up, and notice that because we had, and let me go ahead and click on Close on the Welcome window, because we had put Notepad in the startup group, Notepad is here, ready to go. What if we wanted Notepad to open up, but to open up minimized? And furthermore, what if we wanted the Notepad to open up and open up to a particular document? Well, we can do this as well. The first thing we should do is come to anywhere here on the open desktop and right mouse click. And let's select New, and let's do a new shortcut. Let's go ahead and we can browse, and we need to go into the Windows 95 folder, and once again we need to select Notepad. We'll scroll over, and now we can find it, select it, and click on Open. And now we have the whole command line, which is Win95 /Notepad.exe. If there were a particular document that we wanted to open, at this point we could hit our space bar and type in the name of a document. I happen to know there's a document called tips.txt, and we'll have Notepad open that up when Windows 95 starts again. So we'll go ahead at this point and select Next, and the title for this shortcut will be Notepad Startup, and then we'll select Finish. Now we have a new shortcut icon on our desktop. If we double click to open it up, we see Notepad opens up, and it opens up with a document already loaded. This is the tips document. Let's close this down. And now let's go ahead and we'll open up My Computer over here in the upper left-hand corner. And we want to go ahead and go and look at our C drive. So we'll double click on drive C. And we get a maximized window because the last time we used this, we opened it up in a maximized state. I'm going to come over and select my Restore button in the upper right-hand corner so we can still see part of the desktop while we're working with My Computer. And I'm going to go ahead and take this window here, Drive C, move it over to the right, and I'm going to move this other window down so I can see the Notepad startup shortcut that we just created. Come over here, make this window slightly larger so we can work with it better. And we want to select the Windows 95 folder by double-clicking on it. Then we need to go into Start menu by double-clicking and Programs to finally get to be able to see the Startup folder. I'm going to drag this Notepad startup icon over to the startup group folder. And then I'm going to drop it by letting go. Notice it disappears off the desktop over here. And now if I open up the startup folder, we'll see we have the Notepad startup shortcut. And we can tell it's a shortcut because it's denoted by this little arrow over here in the corner. I'm going to click on the Notepad icon we created earlier, hit the delete key on the keyboard, and say yes, I wish to remove it. So now all I have is my Microsoft Office utilities, which the Microsoft Office for Windows 95 installed, and I have my Notepad startup icon. Let's go ahead and close down all these windows, hold down our Shift key, and click on the X. And they all go away. Let's go down and let's close down, or let's pretend we're closing down Windows 95. Select Shutdown, and select Close All Programs and Log On as a different user. Say yes. We'll log back on as ourselves by simply entering in our password and clicking on OK. And now, when Windows 95 starts, it looks at the startup group and it goes ahead and it's going to open up our Notepad window. We'll click on Close for the welcome. And you can see, here we are. And I can go ahead and close this down. One more thing, if I wanted to open it up minimized, is we need to go back in, open up My Computer, and select Drive C, Win95, and all the way back, Programs, and Startup. And I can right mouse click on my shortcut and select Properties. And now I can select the Shortcut tab. Notice it has my Notepad file, my Notepad application, along with the tips.txt. I can now tell Windows 95 to start this up in a minimized state. I can simply click Apply and OK. Hold down our Shift key, click on the X, close down all these windows. Once again, go to Start, Shutdown, close Programs and log on as a different user, and we'll log on as ourselves again. Type in our password, and when we click OK, we restart Windows 95, and this time we'll get our welcome screen, but the Notepad is started, but notice it's down here on the taskbar, it's started minimized. If we want to open it up, we have that option by clicking on the taskbar, and there it is. And we'll close it back down. As we've seen, we work a lot with folders in Windows 95. Well, the way that the folders open up and look can be customized as well. Let's take a look and see how we can do this. There are many examples of using folders in Windows 95. One example we can use here is, once again, My Computer, the My Computer icon. Let's double click to open it up. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but watch what happens when I select one of these resources, for example, Drive C, And if I double click so I can view the details of drive C, what happens? We get a second window. And if I double click one of these folders, we get a third window, and so on and so forth, until we finally see only files and no folders. Well, what if we don't quite like this approach? There's something we can do. We can close down this window and close down this window. Let's go up to the View menu. You can do this on any folder window. Doesn't matter which. However, this will change the view for all of your folder windows. Let's come down and select Options. Now what we want to do is we want to select the Folder tab. Notice we have two browsing options. The first browsing option is browse folders using a separate window for each folder, like this example here. Every time we open up a new folder, we get a new window. Or option number 2 is browse folders by using a single window that changes as we open each folder. An example of a single window is shown down here. So if we select this second option, and then we can click OK, notice what happens now when I go to open up the contents of drive C. I don't get a second window. The contents of the window simply changes to reflect the contents of my drive C. And if I select a folder like Exchange and double click to open that up, again, I don't get a new window. I simply have the contents of the window change. If we want to go ahead and change this back, all we have to do is select View on any window and Options, and go ahead and select Browse folders using separate windows. And then we can select Apply, and then we can select OK. And now, if we close down this window and go back into my computer, and I select another drive, let's say drive D this time, when I double click to open it up, and we open up subsequent folders, we get subsequent windows. Now there's something else that we can do. Let's go ahead and close down the parent window here, and let's close down one of the children here. If we use our keyboard, notice we're in a child folder. There are other folders above us. If we use our backspace key, it opens up one folder above. In other words, it opens up a parent. If I hit my backspace key again, it opens up its parent. And if I hit it again, it keeps going until we reach the top level. Once we're at the top level, Windows 95 lets us know we're at the very top and we can't go up any further. Then we can go ahead and click OK on this message box, and we're back in the window. If we want to go ahead and close down these windows without using our mouse, we can use our keyboard and use the keystroke combination of the Alt key and the F4 key to close down one window at a time. I'm just holding down my Alt key and tapping F4 each time I'm closing a window. Single window browse mode and multiple window browse mode can seem a bit confusing at first. However, they're really simple. All that it is whether you want Windows 95 to open up different windows when you open up different folders, or whether you want just one window to open up for every time you open up a folder. One more time, let's go back to My Computer, double click to open it up, and we get a window for the My Computer folder. Let's go and take a look on the View menu under Options and see what's selected. Right now, we have browse folders using a single window. That means we will not get multiple windows. We'll only get one window no matter what we do. We'll select OK. And let's go ahead and open up Drive C. And let's come down. Also, by the way, if we're at the top here, there's a folder called A. And if I want to drop down to the folders that start with the letter W, I can type a W. And Windows 95 will take us all the way down to the first occurrence of folders that begin with the letter W. Now I can go ahead with Win95 selected, double click, and open up Win95, and I can keep opening up folders, but yet it's all remaining within one window. Notice that what we're doing is we keep opening up child folders, and we'll see how we can trace our steps backwards in a moment. I'll select the Start menu folder, and now we've gone down sufficient length. If we want to start going back up through the tree of folders, all that we need to do is hit our backspace key on our keyboard. If I hit it once, I go back up one folder. If I hit it again, I go back up another folder. Now notice we're simply in drive C. If I hit backspace again, I'm in my computer, and I'm seeing all of the resources in my computer. And if I were to hit backspace one more time, Windows 95 is going to give us a little error message saying we can't go up any higher, we're at the very top. And we'll click OK. To close down this folder again, click on the X, and we're back at the desktop. There are still more ways that we can customize Windows 95. There's the Windows 95 control panel. Let's take a look at it. We've set up our Windows desktop so that we can actually access the control panel in many ways. You might not have as many ways set up on your computer. Earlier, we set up a shortcut right here on the desktop. We actually have two of them, one here and one here. If we come down to our Start menu, remember we added the control panel with cascading menus right here. We customized this. We have a shortcut we could use here, or on your computer, you might just have the standard Windows 95 default, which would be off of the Settings menu and Control panel. So let's go ahead and access it this way. Doesn't really matter how you access it. And the Control panel folder opens up. We're going to take a look at some of the more important items that you might want to customize. First of all, we have date and time. If we double click, we get the date and time properties dialog. We have two tabs, date and time zone. Time zone is set when you first install Windows 95. Unless you're moving or traveling from country to country, you can usually leave this in place. The date and time tab allows us to adjust our date and time if we've gone ahead and had the battery run down on our computer, or for some reason need to adjust the date and time. We can change the month, and we can also adjust the year. We can type in the year, or we can increment it by clicking on the up arrow, or decrement it by clicking on the down arrow here, right next to the year. We can then also select the day of the month. Right now, we're on August 8, but if this were not the case, if we wanted it to be the 9th or the 10th, we could go ahead and select that by simply clicking on whichever day of the week is appropriate. Let's set it back on the 8th. By the same token, we can adjust the time. We could simply highlight everything and manually change them one set at a time. We can do hour, we can adjust the hour, we can adjust the minutes, as well as the seconds, and we can make it either AM, PM, or AM. We can also increment things manually by selecting either the hours, minutes, or seconds, and then using these up and down arrows. Clicking on the top arrow will increment, and of course the down arrow will decrement. Once we've gone ahead and made all of our changes, we can click on OK for those changes to take effect. Another control panel item which may come in handy from time to time would be mouse. If we double click on the mouse icon, we get mouse properties. And we have 4 corresponding tabs. The first tab is buttons, and this is a configuration of our mouse. This is whether the person who's using the computer is right-handed or left-handed. This will affect which mouse button is dominant. Normally, if you're right-handed, it would be the left button would be dominant. If you're left-handed, it would be the right button which would be dominant, which you can see the dominant button is displayed here in blue. Coming down here, we have double-click speed, and this will affect how fast we have to press our mouse button in order for Windows 95 to recognize it as a double click. We can simply click and drag if we want the speed to be slow, or over to the right if we want it to be fast. Generally, we can leave it about in the middle, which is a Windows default. And over here to the right, there's a test area. And there's a little animated box here, and this can test our double clicking. If we click once, notice nothing happens. If we double click successfully, we get a little jack-in-the-box figure that pops up, letting us know that this is a successful double click. And if we want to continue to test, we can try to double click again, and if we're successful, he goes away. There's another little feature in Windows 95. If we're not sure what something is, there's context-sensitive help. By simply selecting an area that you're not familiar with and clicking on with your right or secondary mouse button, we get a little pop-up box that says, "What's this?" And we can click on it now with our left mouse button. And a pop-up will come up and tell you exactly what this item is. This test area provides a place for you to test the double-click speed of your mouse. If the jack-in-the-box emerges or disappears, Windows recognizes your double-click. And we can do this all over the place by simply right-mouse clicking and clicking on "What's this?" and we get an explanation of what this is. You'll find this feature throughout Windows 95. Let's come up to the Pointers tab, and we can select different mouse pointers if we have them available. Microsoft offers the Plus Pack for Windows 95, which has various cursors and animated cursors that you can add to your system. Notice we can change the scheme. Right now we're selected at none, and we can select animated hourglasses. And we can go ahead and also, if we had other cursors available, we could select the cursor that we wanted to change, the type of cursor, for instance, normal, the normal pointer, the help pointer, working in background, or busy with the hourglass. We could then click on Browse. And if we had other cursors installed in our system already, which we don't right now, we could select them, and then we could go ahead and customize our cursors. We'll click on Cancel for now. The next tab up at the top is the Motion tab. This has to do with mouse pointer speed. This is how fast the mouse travels across your screen. Again, Windows 95 default is right about medium in the middle, but if you find it that too fast, you can go ahead and slow it down so that the speed will be a lot slower, or you can come and drag it over to the right and you can speed it up. We'll leave it about in the middle. Also, if you have a portable computer, a laptop or notebook computer, you might want to turn on pointer trails. What this does, you can kind of see, as I'm moving my mouse around, you can see it has trails. And this is good for liquid crystal display computers. These are usually portables. Generally speaking, on a desktop, you're going to want to shut this off. It tends to be annoying. You really don't need this on a desktop computer. Let's go ahead and go to the last tab, which is General. And this allows us to change the type of mouse that we're using. If we want to change it, we can click on Change. And then we can go ahead and select what type of mouse we now are installing into our PC. If we have a disk that came with our new mouse, we can simply click on Have Disk. We can insert the disk into drive A or drive B, according to what's appropriate for our own PC, and then Windows 95 will read the drivers to go along with our new mouse. We'll click on Cancel, and let's go ahead and click on Cancel for this dialog as well. Once we're done setting all of our mouse properties, we can simply click on OK, and we're back in the Control Panel folder. One more item that we're going to look at here in Control Panel is the Display feature. It's right up here in the upper right-hand corner of the folder. If we double-click on it to open it up, we get the Display Properties screen. And again, there are 4 tabs. The first tab is Background. Right here we get a representation of our Windows desktop. We can choose a pattern for our desktop if we wish. Right now we have none. And we can also choose the background or the wallpaper. And this is very important since in Windows 95 with the desktop, the wallpaper is the predominant background that we're going to be seeing. So you want to choose your wallpaper that you're happy to work with, and that can allow you to see your icons well. We could choose from any of these items here. You might have different wallpaper depending upon your own configuration and whatever files you may have installed already. We have one here that you may or may not have called Win95. It has the Windows 95 logo on it. You can see an example of it right here. We can choose to have it tiled, or we can choose to have it centered. Since it's a large wallpaper, we'll leave it at center. And if we click on Apply, notice that our background over here on our Windows 95 desktop changes immediately. Let's go ahead and let's go to the next tab, which is Screensaver. The screensaver can come on after a certain number of minutes. Right now, we have no screensaver. If we click on the drop-down list box, we could select, for example, Flying Windows. And here's an example of what it looks like when the screensaver turns itself on. There are settings that we can set as well. We can turn on, we can tell how fast the windows can be flying, and the number of windows that we wish to appear on the screensaver. And we can then click OK. And we can also do a preview so we can see how it actually looks, what it actually will look like when the screensaver comes on. We can choose to have it password protected, and we can go ahead and enter in a password. This is if we're concerned about some security. We can enter a password and then confirm that password to make sure we typed it correctly, and click on OK. And Windows 95 tells us the password has been successfully changed. Then we can go ahead and do a preview. We can also customize how long it'll take before the screensaver will kick in. And we could say, for example, 20 minutes. And then we can go ahead to the next tab. We'll click on Appearance. This is the properties and the different colors that we can have for the Windows 95 windows. You see we have examples here, and we have different color schemes that we can choose from. If we click on the drop-down list box under Scheme, we can choose from different schemes pre-programmed that ship with Windows. For example, red, white, and blue. And you see the change reflected here. We could also change particular items, such as the desktop or icons or icon spacing. We could enter in our own icon spacing. And we could also choose particular items such as inactive title bars, and we could customize them as well. We could change the font. And you notice the font changes right here. And we could then create our own color scheme, and we could save it. Instead of red, white, and blue, we could call it Dan's USA and click on OK. And now we have our own custom color scheme that we can select from now or later on. And notice we still have red, white, and blue. The final tab is over here under Settings. And this has to do with display properties of our monitor. We have a color palette, and we can choose right now, based on our system here, we only have two choices, either monochrome or 16 color. We'll leave it at 16 color. Your particular computer may have other choices, such as 256 color. We also can take a look at our desktop area. Right now we're at 640 by 480, and if we had a higher resolution monitor, we could click and drag this over, and we could select a higher resolution. We could also go ahead and change our display type if we bought a new monitor. And we could go ahead, right now we're using a standard display adapter VGA. We could simply click on the Change button. And if we had a disk that went along with our monitor, which we usually would, either with our monitor or with our actual VGA card, I should say, we could go ahead and click on the Have Disk button and put the disk into the drive, and then Windows 95 would read it and go ahead and select the appropriate and install the appropriate drivers. Let's click on Cancel, and we'll click on Cancel once again here. Also under Monitor Type, we could select a different monitor type. Again, if we had a disk to go along with our monitor, we could enter the manufacturer's disk and Windows 95 would install the drivers. We'll click on Cancel, and we'll click on Cancel again. Let's click on Cancel for display type. And these are the display properties. I'm going to go ahead and click on Cancel because I don't want any inadvertent changes to affect the system adversely. And one other thing I can show you is if we click on the desktop, if we do a right mouse click and select Properties, we can also get our display properties this way. We don't have to get the display properties only through the control panel. This is just another way to get at and change your display. Click on Cancel, and we'll go ahead and close down the control panel folder. If you have gone ahead and changed some settings to your Windows 95 system, and if you found that you changed something you maybe shouldn't have and your system isn't working properly, Windows 95 has a way around it. It's called using safe mode, and let's see how we can use this. We're back at Windows 95, and notice that our screensaver has kicked on. If we move our mouse or if we hit any key on our keyboard, notice what happens. The Windows screensaver dialog comes up. This is because we turned on password protection. Had we not turned on password protection, the Windows 95 desktop would be automatically displayed. We need to type in our password. Oops, what is our password? Let's see, that might be it. I'll click on OK. Oh, sorry, password we typed is not correct. Let's try it again. We need to type in the proper password or Windows 95 will not allow us to go back into the system. This could be a problem. The only way around this is to reboot the system or to turn the power off and back on. However, any information you're working with could be lost. You don't want to do that. You always want to remember your password. Let's see if we typed it in properly this time by clicking on OK. And now we're back at our Windows 95 desktop. Let's pretend that we changed some settings in Control Panel, and now our Windows 95 system isn't working properly. What can we do? Well, there is something we can do. First, we'll need to shut down. We can either go to the Start menu and select Shut Down, or we can go ahead and use an old Windows trick, which is hold down your Alt key and then press your F4 function key. Has the same effect and allows you to shut down Windows. We get the Shut Down Windows dialog box. What do we want to do? Shut down the computer? Yes, but we want to shut down and restart. We'll select Restart the computer, and then we'll then select Yes. And Windows 95 will go through and shut itself down. When it boots back up, we're going to wait until we see the words starting Windows 95. As soon as you see those words, you need to press the F8 function key right away. Let's see. Starting Windows 95. I just pressed F8. This is the Windows 95 startup menu. Pressing the F8 key when Windows 95 first goes to boot up is a very handy feature. It actually allows us to do many things. We can go ahead and continue booting up Windows 95 normally. That's the first choice. If we tap our down arrow, we can create a log file. We can do number 3. The number 3 option is safe mode, which we're going to use. Number 4 would be safe mode with network support if you're on a network. 5 is step-by-step confirmation if you have a config sys and or an auto-exec bat. Command prompt only. Safe mode command prompt only. That means not in graphical mode. Or we could use our previous version of MS-DOS. Windows 95 does not obliterate your old MS-DOS, believe it or not. We're going to go ahead and choose number 3, safe mode, by up arrowing to it and then hitting our enter key. And Windows 95 will enter safe mode, which essentially is Windows 95, but in a mode so that we can fix any problems that we may have created. When safe mode finally boots up, we get a desktop dialog here telling us that Windows is running in safe mode. This is a special diagnostic mode of Windows 95, enabling us to fix any problem that's keeping us from starting Windows normally. The problem could be caused by our network or our hardware settings from Control Panel. Make sure these settings are correct in Control Panel, as we just said, then try to start Windows again, not in safe mode. You don't want to run Windows in safe mode all the time. You just want to run it to fix whatever the problem may be. For more information, we can see Troubleshooting and Help. While in safe mode, some of our devices may not be available. And this is why Windows is able to work in safe mode where it may not work under normal circumstances. Let's click on OK. And notice in all four corners of our screen, we have the word safe mode, letting us know that that's the mode we're operating in right now. And what we could do, if we wanted to, we would go into Control Panel, and we could go ahead and adjust some of our settings that we made, hoping to find the cause. And once the cause hopefully was remedied, we could then close down Control Panel, go ahead, shut down, and restart normally. Okay. We've just seen how we can customize and configure Windows 95. We've seen how we can add and remove items from the Start menu. And we also saw how we can use a startup group to start programs when we first start Windows 95. We talked about some additional folder properties, and we took a look at Control Panel settings. We also saw how we could adjust settings for our taskbar, and we saw how we could design our own workspace by changing patterns on the desktop as well as wallpaper and colors. Finally, we saw how we can use safe mode in case some of our configurations go awry.
No matter what application you're printing in within Windows 95, you're actually utilizing Windows 95 to print. In this section, you're going to learn how to set up an additional printer. You'll learn about printer properties, how to view them and how to change them, and also how to create a shortcut to your printer. You'll also learn how to view print jobs, delete print jobs if you decide that you don't want to print that particular document, and you'll learn about a great feature for mobile users. Let's start by setting up a printer. Click on your Start button on your taskbar and go into Settings. This is where you'll find your printers. Select Printers. And notice that you have an icon to add a new printer. I'm going to double click to Add Printer. And we're going to launch the Add Printer wizard. This wizard helps you to install a printer quite easily. I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. And I'm asked if I want to install a local printer or a network printer. If you were going to hook up to a printer out on the network, you would select Network Printer. I'm going to hook up to a local printer attached directly to my PC, so I'll select Local Printer. After selecting Next, you'll get a listing of all of the manufacturers of printers and particular printers made by that manufacturer. I'm going to come down and select HP. So I click on HP and I instantly see the types of Hewlett-Packard printers listed over to the right. I'm going to come down and select HP LaserJet 4 and then select Next. I'm then asked about my printer port and where it's located. My printer port is located on LPT1, so I can just select Next. I'm then asked for a printer name. I'm going to change this to say Local HP LaserJet 4 because I may want to hook up to a network LaserJet 4 later. I'm also asked if I want my Windows-based programs to use this printer as the default. I do, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This will become my default or automatic printer used by my applications. Now I'll select Next again. I'm also asked if I would like to print a test page. In my case, I'm going to say no. If you'd like to print a test page, you can say yes. And now I'm ready to finish. At this point, you may be asked to insert a diskette depending upon whether you have the printer driver located within your Windows 95 directory. After the process has completed, I can see that I now have an icon for my local HP LaserJet 4. This is an icon to represent my printer that I just installed a driver for. I'm going to right mouse click in this window and select Arrange Icons and Auto Arrange. Well, now that I have this icon, I can actually change properties of this printer. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to right mouse click on top of the icon. Notice I can select Pause Printing. I can purge print jobs from this printer, set as default, which it already is set, create a shortcut, delete, rename, or look at the properties. We're going to look at the properties of our printer. So I'm going to select Properties. This is where I can put in some comments, whether or not there's a separator page, and I can go into details about the printer, the port, which driver it's being used, timeout settings. Paper, I can pick what paper size, the orientation, portrait or landscape, my paper source, the number of copies. And I can select information about graphics, fonts, and other device options. So there's quite a bit that you can do just to configure or customize your printer. Let's cancel out of here. We've just set up an additional printer and learned how to configure its default properties. You can set up as many printers as you'd like, as long as you have drivers for those printers and access to those printers either locally or out on the network. Sometimes you want to be able to easily access your printer and its features at any time. In order to set up a shortcut to this printer, I place my mouse pointer over the printer and right mouse click. Then I can create a shortcut. Once again, I get this familiar message that Windows can't create it here. Do I want Windows to create it on the desktop? Once I select yes, you can see that I now have a shortcut to access the printer. Well, why do I care? Let's close down printers over here. Remember that before, the way that I had to get here was by going through Start, and then I would go up through Settings, and then down to Printers, and then I had to pick the printer, right mouse click, go into its properties, and so forth. Well, it's a lot easier if I want to do something such as view my print jobs or purge. I can just come over to this icon that's right here on my desktop, right mouse click, I can pause printing, purge my print jobs, send to, and so forth. There's another really nice thing I can do with this icon. I can come over to the icon and double click on it, and when I double click on it, I can actually see all of the print jobs that are currently running on this particular printer. What I'm going to do is leave this open, go over to the Start menu, we're going to come up to Programs, Accessories, and go on down into WordPad down at the bottom. In WordPad, I'm going to type in, this is a test of some text that I would like to print. Now that I've entered that text, I'm ready to print that text. I'm going to come up and select Print right here, and then immediately go over to the local HP4, and notice that it says it's spooling, and it tells me the progress of the print job and so forth. As long as this is printing, you can see right now it's printing, I can see the job listed right here. I'm going to close this down, so I'm no longer viewing it. And let's also close down WordPad. And no, I don't want to save my changes. I'm going to double click on this local HP4. Now, I'm not hooked up to a printer right now. I just got actually a print error. What I'm going to do is select Retry and then double click. And we can still see that again this is trying to print. Well, what if I want to delete it? With it selected, all I need to do is hit my delete key. I get a message that this is being deleted, and I'm actually deleting the print job from the queue. so that it will no longer be printing. If I had already printed some pages, they would still be printed out, of course, but I would keep any further pages from printing. Maybe I decided I didn't want to print that document after all. Now you can see the job is gone from this particular dialog. Let's go back over to Start again and Start Programs, Accessories, and WordPad. I'm going to open up an existing document. So I'm going to select Open right over here. And we're looking at our desktop. I'm going to double click on my computer down here. And I want to look at my C drive. And I want to look in Win95. Scrolling over to the right, we can find a document. I want to open up what's actually a text file. So instead of looking at Word for Windows documents, I'm going to come down and select Text Documents. Scroll over to the right again. We're going to open up a large document called Tips. So I double click on Tips, and I actually had made a change to my document, so it's asking me if I want to save the changes. I'm going to say no. You might not get that message, and Tips will open up. I'm going to select Print from up top, the print icon up top, and quickly switch over to the HP4. And we should see the print job in a moment show up here. And here it is. Notice that I can go up with this item selected, I can go up to the printer menu and select Pause Printing. So what I've done is I've actually paused the printer. Sometimes you do this if you realize that you've got the wrong paper in the printer's jammed, or something like that. So you may want to pause the print job. I can come up to the printer menu and select Purge Print Jobs, and it will actually delete all of my print jobs. And you'll see that print job is deleted. Coming back over here to WordPad, let's select Print again from up top, and go back over to our HP4 down here on the taskbar, and we can see that Tips again is being spooled. So we can pause printing, we can purge print jobs. I can remove the pause to the printer because right now we're still paused. And I can also go into the document menu. If I had a particular document selected, I can pause or cancel. So from the printer menu, I'm pausing or purging all print jobs. From the document menu, I'm pausing or canceling one particular print job. I can also go over to the View menu and determine whether or not I see the status bar. I'm going to delete this job by Document, Cancel Printing, and again, this will delete this specific print job. And now it's gone. I'm going to close down the HP4 and close down WordPad. I travel quite a bit, so I'm always working on my mobile PC, my notebook computer. Sometimes I want to print something but not have it actually print out until I return back to my office. We're going to learn about deferred printing and how it can help the mobile computer user. So let's say I'm out on the road right now, and I know that I'm going to be sending some print jobs to the printer. I'm going to come up to this shortcut to my local HP LaserJet 4 and right mouse click and select Pause Printing. Now I can go and print various things, so let's do that. I'm going to go over to Start, Programs, Accessories, and WordPad. Come up to my File menu up here and open back up Tips that we were working with a bit ago. I'm going to select Print to print Tips. Now I'm going to open up another document. I'm going to open up, this is a very long WordPad name. You can open any document that you'd like. And I'm going to print this one as well. So I've printed a couple of documents. I'm going to exit out of WordPad. In fact, I'm going to shut down Windows 95. I'm going to go to my Start menu and Shut Down. We're going to shut down and restart. So I'm going to select Restart and then select Yes. So Windows 95 shuts down, and then it will start up again. I'm going to go ahead and enter my password. And notice that I get a message. It says my local HP LaserJet 4, need to close down this window here. It says my local HP LaserJet 4 printer has 2 jobs. To start printing these jobs, click yes. To pause printing, click no. To delete these jobs, click cancel. If I were hooked back up to my network printer or back home at my local printer, I could select yes. I'm going to select no and pretend that I'm still not ready to go back in and print these. If I wanted to delete the print jobs, I could select cancel. So I still have those jobs. I can keep them there as long as I want until I'm ready to print them. If I did indeed want to get rid of them right now, I could right mouse click on my printer and select Purge Print Jobs, and it actually would remove them. If I double click instead, I can view the print jobs. They're right here and they're paused. I also could remove them through Printer and Purge Print Jobs. And now they're gone. You just learned all about printing in Windows 95. Remember, whether you're printing in Excel, you're printing in Access or Word, you're always printing through Windows 95. You also learned how to set up printers, change printer properties, and how to create a shortcut so that you can easily access your printer at any time. You learned how to view and delete print jobs, as well as how to act as a mobile user, stalling your printing of your print jobs while you're on the road until you get back to your office.
Now that you've had a chance to get your feet wet, so to speak, with Windows 95, we're going to show you some advanced techniques. We'll show you some important information on memory and resources for Windows. We'll take a look at associating file names. Then we'll take a look at how we can create new documents directly from the desktop. We'll see how we can undo a rename or a delete. We'll also take a look at the run command. Finally, we'll look at how you can work with legacy applications, those old DOS and Windows 3.1 apps that are still very useful for you. And finally, we'll see how Windows 95 can gracefully close an application that has gone wrong. When using a graphical operating system such as Windows 95, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, more obviously, is memory, but a second one, which is not quite so obvious, is called resources. Resources are what your computer can very well run out of way before it'll ever use up all of its memory. This is something you need to keep track of. Let's go ahead and go up to My Computer and right mouse click on it. Then let's select its properties. Again, we've seen this before. What we need to go to is Skip General Device Manager and Hardware Profiles. Click directly on the Performance tab. This is some very critical information. It's called Performance Status. Memory. Memory means how much memory is physically installed on your personal computer. This particular computer has 32 megabytes of RAM. This is more than enough to run Windows 95. Your configuration may vary. Chances are you may have 8 meg, 12, or perhaps 16 meg of RAM. Those are all generally fine. System resources, this is the important factor here. Notice that right now we have 94% free. Watch what happens when we open up some other applications. What we can do is simply go to the Start menu, and we'll open up, under Accessories, first WordPad, and then we'll go ahead, since we have a multitasking operating system, and we can open up another document simultaneously. We can open up Notepad, we can open up Paint. Okay, and let's minimize Paint. And let's click back over here on System Properties. Notice it still says System Resources 94%. Let's go ahead and open up another program. This time we can do Notepad. Whoops. Here we go. And now we have 3 programs running as we see down here on our taskbar. I'm going to minimize Notepad. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and I'm going to minimize WordPad to go back to the Windows 95 desktop. Let's go back to My Computer and again select Properties and again select the Performance tab. Notice now My system resources have gone down to 86%. With Windows 95, resources are not that big of an issue as they used to be in Windows 3.1 or Windows for Workgroups. However, if you open enough programs, eventually this number will get down to below 50%. When it gets below 50%, you should be concerned. If it gets much below 40% into the 30s, chances are you're looking for a system crash. So the moral to this story, don't let your system resources get too low. Don't open up too many programs. Because I have 32 meg of RAM on my machine, 32 megabytes of memory, I have the luxury of being able to open several programs. If your particular computer doesn't have this luxury of this much memory, you need to be more careful. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and I'll close this down. We can go ahead and close down these other applications by simply right mouse clicking on them and then selecting Close. We don't have to open them back up to close them down. Now we're back in the desktop. Windows 95 keeps track of all different file types. It does this by adding a 3-character extension to each file name. We'll be able to view this file extension in a moment, as you'll see. This is how Windows 95 can differentiate a Word document from a Notepad text document from a paintbrush document. Let's see how this works. Here in the Windows 95 desktop, once again, we're going to go to the famous My Computer icon, and we're going to double-click to open it up. And we get a My Computer folder window. Let's go ahead and take a look at some files or some folders on Drive C of our computer by double-clicking on Drive C, and we get another window, which is our Drive C window. At this point, let's go and select the Win95 folder by typing a W on the keyboard, and we jump to the first W folder, which happens to be Win95. I can double-click to open it up, and we can see all the other folders as well as other files that are in this particular folder. We can scroll through, and we can see our different types of files with their associated icons. Here we have a couple of long file names that were created earlier. We also have some other text files. These are denoted by these little icons that look like sheets of paper right here. Notice that these file names have no extensions. Let's go ahead and change an option in this window. This will change the options for all of these windows, by the way. We'll click on View, and we'll go down to Options. Then we'll select the View tab. Notice it's talking about hidden files here. First of all, do we want to hide any files? Yes or no. Hide files of these types or show all files. We'll leave it at show all files. However, if we come down to the next checkbox down here, it says, should we display the full MS-DOS path in the title bar? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. That will show us exactly the exact physical locations of the folders and files on our hard drive. We'll see that in a moment. The next checkbox, which we're going to uncheck, says hide the MS-DOS file extensions for file types that are registered. In other words, files like these up here that have these types of 3-letter extensions. Notice the dot and the 3 letters after it. This is what comes after each file name of these particular types. But there's more extensions than these, as we'll see in a moment. So we're going to show all files. We'll display the full MS-DOS path in the title bar of each window. We are not going to hide the file extensions for any types that are registered. We'll click on Apply so we can see it take effect immediately in each of our windows, and then we'll select OK. We'll scroll back on over, and we'll look at our text files that we saw earlier. This time we're going to notice that they do have extensions. Programs.txt, readme.txt, support.txt, etc. Notice they still have their associated icons, which means that they're a text file, and we can tell that they're a text file because of the txt extension. And this is what Windows 95 looks at, and this is how it can tell what type of file they are. Text files can be opened, or txt files can be opened by applications such as Notepad. What we want to do first here is, first of all, create a new folder. We can do that by coming over in white space anywhere within our folder window and right mouse clicking, selecting New, and then selecting Folder. And a new folder pops up. Notice that we're still within our Win95 folder. This is what could be called a subfolder. It's a folder within a folder, and you can go several layers deep. I'm going to type in a new name. I'm going to call it simply Associate, because we're going to associate a new file extension to allow Windows 95 to know that these files are associated with a particular application. I'll click in white space so the name will take effect. And here we have a new folder called Associate. Notice that the Associate folder was placed at the bottom of the list where I was. If we scroll over, we can still see the rest of the folder, all listed in alphabetical order. Or actually, it's listed by type, listed by file type. Notice it's listed by extension. Here we have some EXEs. Those are programs. Here's more EXEs. Here we have some bitmap or paint files. Again, you can tell by the BMP extension along with the type of icon that it's located next to. We have some INI files, help files, group files, etc. And again, we have our text files over here. What I'm going to do is I want to copy some of these text files into our new folder. I'm going to hold down, I'm going to go ahead and select the programs file, programs.txt, hold down my shift key, and come down and also select everything through tips.txt. Once I click with my shift key held down, I select all these files. Then what I'm going to do is I don't want to move these files. I want them still to be here, but I want to make a copy of them. Hold down my control key, then click and drag. And notice I'm dragging them all over to the Associate folder and let go. Notice the files are still here. Let's open up the Associate folder. The files are here too. We'll go ahead and make this window a bit larger. Notice that we're here in our window, our folder window, and we have a full path name up in the title bar. That was that one box that we checked. It's on our C drive, and there's a backslash, meaning there's a folder called Win95, and underneath the folder called Win95 is another folder or a subfolder called Associate. And we could keep on going if we had other subfolders. And this is the window we're looking at. These files are all within this folder called Associate, which is located within the folder called Win95 on our hard drive called Drive C. I'm going to go ahead and select this icon right here, this file called programs.txt. I'm going to right mouse click on it, select rename, and I'm simply going to hit my end key, backspace 3 times, and rename the extension to Dan. Okay? Dan is not associated with any particular program. So watch what happens when I click off of it. Windows 95 asks me if I'm sure I want to rename the extension because the file may become unusable. Well, it's not that the file will become unusable. It's that there's no program that will be associated with that particular extension. So I'll say yes. So therefore, notice that the icon changed as well because it's no longer a text file like these over here. It's a nothing file. It's not associated. If I double click on it, an Open With dialog pops up asking me what program do I want to associate with a file name that ends in the extension DAN. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say cancel for now. Notice it doesn't open it up. If I click on any one of these other files, such as README, Notepad will open and let us work on the file because the TXT extension is associated with the Notepad program. And I'm going to click on the X and get rid of it. Well, what if we want to go ahead and have file names that end in the extension of DAN associated with an application program such as Notepad? No problem. Let's come over to this icon here, this file, right mouse click, and notice here, we don't have an open option, we have an open with option. This is because, again, the file has no associations. We'll select open with. And we get the open with dialog box. It says click the program you want to use to open the file, programs.dan. But this will open any files that have an extension of DAN, no matter what they are. If the program you want is not in the list, click other. So we could have a description. We'll just call these Dan's text files. And we need to now select the program that we want to use with these types of files, Dan files. I'm just calling it Dan for lack of any other name. Here we have Notepad. So now that we've entered in a description up here, we've selected a program to use these files with down here, we can select OK. Before we do that, notice it says always use this program to open this file. If we don't check this box, this will only be a one-time thing. We'll open the file once, and then next time we double-click, it'll give us the same error message. So we'll leave that checked, we'll click on OK. And notice Notepad opens up the file that's called programs.dan. Let me close Notepad down to show you that it does work. If I come over, notice the icon changed, and it's a Notepad icon to let us know this is associated with Notepad. I'll double-click. Once again, you see Notepad opens it up. This will go for any file, though. Come over here to the right. Let's rename this tips.txt file. We'll call it tips.dan. Remember, Dan is now associated. Click off of it. We get a warning. We'll say yes. And again, notice we get the Notepad icon because Windows 95 now knows any file name that ends in the word of .dan is associated with the Notepad application. If I double click, again I get Notepad just as if it were a text file with the extension txt, but instead it's a file with the extension DAN. And we'll close this down. And we can go ahead, close all these windows, hold down our Shift key on our keyboard, and click on the X. And they'll all go away. What do? You're on the go, you want to create a file real quick, you don't know what application to use. Well, let's use the Windows 95 desktop. So we want to create a document real quickly right from the Windows 95 desktop. All we need to do is right mouse click, select New, and we have various different options that we've seen before. We can create a new folder, a new shortcut, or below that we have a whole bunch of different options. These are very much dependent upon the types of applications that you have installed on your own Windows 95 computer. Text document would be a Notepad type document. We happen to have Microsoft Word installed. We have the whole Microsoft Office for Windows 95 installed on this computer. So we could create a Word document directly from here. We could do a paintbrush picture, a WAV file, PowerPoint presentation, an Excel spreadsheet, or an Microsoft Office binder or briefcase document. We're going to go ahead and select text document and click on it. And notice that a desktop icon is now presented, waiting for a title. We'll just entitle this Quick. And if I click off of it, we now have an icon with a notepad icon telling us this is a notepad type document. If we double click on it, it will automatically open Notepad, and we can go ahead and start typing information in. And then if we want to go and simply exit out, Notepad will be sure to ask us, do we want to save this file? And if we say yes, the file is saved, and we have a link, a shortcut enabling us to quickly access our document later on. All we need to do is double click on it, and there's our document. That's a really fast and dirty way of creating a Notepad document directly from the Windows 95 desktop. We'll close this down. Sometimes in the rush to get a project done, we might delete or rename a file that we really didn't want to. This can be undone rather easily with Windows 95. Let's say we're going to go ahead and change the name of this document here on our desktop. We're going to right mouse click, select rename, and we're going to name it something different. We're going to say, call it really super quick. And then we'll click anywhere on the desktop so it'll take effect. And then a moment later we say, no, we didn't want to do that. We already have a document called really super quick. We don't want to do that at all. I want to leave it the way it was. Simply right mouse click on the desktop and then select Undo Rename. And just like that, your rename is put back the way that it was. What if we want to go ahead and select it and we figure, oh, we can delete this? We hit our delete key. Are we sure we want to delete it? Yeah, sure no, we don't. That's okay. Come back to the desktop, right mouse click, select Undo Delete. And it's back. It's just in a different location. Windows has gone ahead and lined it up with our other icons down here at the bottom. And that's undo. Sometimes you may want to run an application program that doesn't have its own icon and that for some reason is not on the Start menu. Well, you can do this very easily from the Start menu's Run command. Let's say you wanted to run an old recipe program that was written for MS-DOS, and you just need to try to find it and see if you can run it under this new Windows 95. Well, let's go to the Start menu and we'll select the Run command. And what we need to do, if we know exactly where the program is located, we could type in a file location and path, but if we don't know, we're not sure, we probably should click on the Browse button. And we'll go ahead and we'll browse for this program. We're going to click on the drop down here and select drive D because we think that's where it's located. And okay, there's something called Seal, there's something called Doom. We'll double click, and I think there's an icon here as a program. We'll double click on that and we'll select OK to run it. And Windows 95 will go out and run your program, whether it's a Windows program or DOS. This doesn't look like the recipe program. Oh my. I think your teenagers have gotten to the computer. Oh well, we can look for another program. But this gives you an idea of Windows 95's multimedia capability. To get out of that particular game, I hit Escape, and notice Windows 95 goes ahead and it shows us that we've finished the program, and now what we need to do is close this window. Doom is a kind of game that has to run in a full screen, but when it's finished, Windows 95 puts it back into a window. We'll click on the X here and we'll close it down. We're back at the desktop. So as you've seen, you can run old MS-DOS applications as well as old Windows 3.1 applications, although your Windows 3.1 applications are going to have to be reinstalled if you didn't install Windows 95 over your old Windows. We're going to show you next how you can use some of the old standbys, like File Manager and Program Manager, if you feel more comfortable. Let's go back up to the My Computer icon, double click to open it up, and let's go back to Drive C, double click, and we'll type a W to go down to Win95. And we're going to look for some names out of the past. Progman and FileMan, or WinFile. Now, let's see, here's WinFile here. Let's first go ahead and open up Progman. Progman stands for Program Manager, and that's what the old Windows 3.1 and Windows for Workgroups 3.11 used in order to manage all your programs. If we double click on the icon, we'll open up the Windows 95 version of Program Manager. This is strictly for backward compatibility and for people to help people get used to Windows 95. This is why they make it available. So notice here we have Program Manager. We can go ahead and close down the other windows for My Computer, and we're left with Program Manager running on top of the Windows 95 desktop. Close this one down as well. And you can see we have our familiar program groups. We have Main, Multimedia, we have Documents. We go back to Main, you'll see that we have some Windows 95 folders put into here. And we have an MS-DOS prompt icon. as well as File Manager. If we double-click on File Manager, we can open it up, and it's the familiar File Manager that you may be used to if you've used Windows before. And you can see we can go ahead, open New Windows, and you could use this instead of the Explorer if you felt more comfortable. We can go ahead, let's close this down, clicking on the X, and we can close down Program Manager without exiting Windows because Windows 95 does not require the use of Program Manager. We're using Program Manager here simply as just another Windows application. So we'll go ahead and close this down. Windows 95 is a very stable operating system. What this means for you is peace of mind. If one program goes bad, it won't necessarily bring down all the other ones. Windows 95 will allow you to gracefully close the offending program and then continue on with your work. Back here at the Windows 95 desktop, it's looking a little bit cluttered. That's because we have 4 different applications running. As we can see down here at the bottom of our taskbar, we have a Paint program, we have a document in WordPad, we have a test application that we're going to use in a moment, and we have an AVI video clip. Let's go ahead and start the video clip. By the way, this is called multitasking, doing more than one thing at one time, and that's why we have multitasking written right here. Multi-threading is an application doing more than one thing at one time, such as spell checking while it's printing. That's the difference between multitasking and multi-threading. We're going to start the video clip, and it's running along. And what happens if one of our programs all of a sudden decides to die? Everything stops. It appears that we're frozen and that we can't do anything. Well, Windows 95 has a way to gracefully exit from all this. We can simply close down the offending application. We have to hold down our Control key, our Alt key, and then press Delete, all at the same time. Notice when we do this, the computer is not rebooted, but a closed program dialog box pops up. This is a great feature of Windows 95. It shows us all of the applications that are running right now, and it shows us the one test application here which says it's not responding. It's holding up our entire system. In the past, we would probably have to go ahead and try to reboot our system. We might even have to turn the power off for the system to respond, and then we'd have to reboot. We don't have to do this. Notice there's a warning down here. It says pressing Control-Alt-Delete again will restart your computer. And if we have any data we haven't saved, then we will lose that data. So if we've been working on word processing here and on this bitmap paint file here, we'd lose whatever information that we've worked on if we hadn't, from the time we had saved. I'm going to go ahead and we're selecting the test application and click on End Task. Notice that Windows 95 now tells us this program's not responding. It may be busy, waiting for a response, or it may have stopped running. We can click Cancel to ignore, or we can close the program by selecting End Task. We're going to select End Task. Notice that the offending program goes away, our AVI clip continues to run, and we can go ahead and continue to word process, just as if nothing happened. Try doing that with the old Windows. We've just seen a demonstration of some advanced techniques for Windows 95. We saw information about memory and resources and how important that is. We took a look at how you can associate files with programs. We saw how we can create new documents directly from the Windows 95 desktop. And then we saw how we can use undo to undo a rename or to undo a deleted file. We also saw how we can use the run command to run old programs or programs that are not on the start menu or on the desktop. We saw how we could work with legacy programs like the old Program Manager and File Manager. And finally, we saw how Windows 95 can gracefully exit from a situation where an application is hanging the entire system.
We've enjoyed giving you a tour of the power features of Windows 95. We've shown you how to work with desktop shortcuts and how to customize Windows 95. We've talked about issues with printing, and you've learned numerous advanced techniques.
On the next tape, Level 3, we'll talk about some very advanced features like OLE, object linking and embedding. We'll talk about the DOS command prompt window. We'll see how we can use tools for PC system management, and finally, we'll look at some new information services like the Microsoft Network.
We hope you've enjoyed this training session and, more importantly, increased your knowledge and productivity. Keystone Learning Systems offers hundreds of courses including MS Office, Novell Perfect Office, NetWare, Lotus Smart Suite, Lotus Notes, Power Builder, Corel Draw, PageMaker, and many, many more. Each is designed to accelerate your learning curve and increase your productivity. Each makes a nice addition to your computer training library. Call us today if you have any additional questions or would like to place an order. Our phone number in the United States and Canada is 1-800-748-4838. And if you're calling from somewhere else in the world, please dial 801-375-8680. Thank you.